Coming up in This Week in Computer Hardware, Robert Heron talks HDTVs, Far Cry kills cheap gaming PCs, SSD torture test update, G-Sync flicker problems too, sweet GTX 970 GPUs, H.265 explained, and more. It's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 294, recorded December 4, 2014. Far Cry kills bargain PCs. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Harry's. For guys who want a great shave experience for a fraction of what you're paying now, go to harrys.com. And just in time for the gift season, for new and existing customers, get $5 off the limited edition Winter Winston set by entering the code TWiCHHOLIDAY at checkout. And by Mandrill. Mandrill is a scalable, reliable, and secure email infrastructure service trusted by more than 300,000 customers. Sign up at mandrill.com, promo code TWIT, and you'll receive 50,000 free email sends per month for your first 6 months of service. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, Twit's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most exciting, most informative, and most engaging discussion on hardware. We love the gaming PCs. We like to create video and get our Photoshop on, but we even love, ladies and gentlemen, cell phones and tablets. This is not going to be a tablet or cell phone heavy show. A lot of that news is already broken, but ladies and gentlemen, we have some excitement here. No, Ryan Trout is not on fire. He is traveling, doing his business thing somewhere, I believe, south of us. By about 9 hours right now. Robert Heron is joining us from HeronFidelity.com, my former partner in crime on HD Nation and my future partner in crime on something that will soon be known as AV Excel.
Hell yeah. How you doing?
I'm
about freaking time. That's all I have to say about that.
So, you know, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I still have difficulty saying Cyber Monday with a straight face.
There were many good deals to be had if you're a TV fan, or a lot of stuff you could get on sale.
But you were saying those deals are going to come back. Those prices are going to come back.
Always. I mean, everything's cyclical. By the time, say, the Super Bowl rolls around for American football, you're going to see good deals on all sorts of related electronics, including TVs. Likewise, as we get closer to Christmas, they're going to want to get rid of some stock, and we will have those items also on sale again. So, yeah, typically they're saving that first shot of sales prices for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but don't think that's the be-all, end-all. That's the only day you're going to get the best price of the year. Right. There will always be future times. Although I did notice a lot of the TVs that were seriously discounted, the ones I'm interested in at least, the prices are back up $100 plus for most larger sizes. So, yeah, it's a percentage up. So it's worth waiting again.
I mean, generally speaking, they're not going to drop prices until after Christmas at this point. Or do you think they might drop them between now and Christmas?
It depends. A lot of manufacturers have to hold, or a lot of retailers have to hold a price at a certain point. But there are certain models out there right now that are at lowest prices I've seen so far. Usually not the super premium stuff at this moment, but for some of the maybe the medium range products that I'm looking at. Stuff maybe in the smaller sizes, and for a step back or two from the ultra premium series, if you're looking for, say, like 4K and 3D and smart TVs and things like that. Well, some of the mid-range products are still going to be offered at really attractive prices. So keep an eye out for those. And those are the ones I like to focus on too. Right now is a good time to surprise me. It's like, oh, I didn't expect that to be on sale right now. Like, in particular, there's one plasma that I just love, the F8500 that Samsung's discontinued now. But a bunch of the 51-inch models, pretty much the only size you can still get, just popped up again at under $1,000. So if you were looking for a premium TV on sale, that would be one I would point out right away. And
somebody misplaced a container? I mean,
probably.
They're out of the plasma business. Where does a last batch suddenly show up from? What's the story on the? You just finished a review the H6400, another Samsung panel.
Yeah. Totally. Another mid-range one during Black Friday sales. It was going for about $900 online for the 55-inch screen size. It's in a variety of sizes, I believe, up to 75. I want to say. A terrific smart TV. If you wanted to save a couple bucks and you don't care about say 3D or the fancy remote that it comes with, I would drop back and get the 6350. You can save a couple $100 that way. Likewise, if you want something a little more high, but otherwise identical screen performance, 120 hertz, 1080p resolution. What I liked a lot about it was just out of the box, the 6400 and I'm assuming the 6300 had some really good image quality in terms of the factory calibration of the movie picture preset. It was pretty well calibrated right out of the box, but I of course had to tweak it a little bit further and take it on there. Stepping up from that one, I would say the 7150 that's listed on the page you were just showing. That's one that takes it from 120 hertz panel up to 240 hertz. Better motion resolution if you're looking for stuff that will clean up and make video, especially the 30, 60 hertz video sources like you get from 1080p channel, 1080i channels from broadcast, or not so much Blu-ray movies. That's that baby right there. That is getting up into the more premium range. And again, I would wait for a sale price on that really before diving back into it. But that one in particular, I like a lot just because of, again, Samsung seems to do a really good movie picture preset as far as a factory calibration. So if you don't want to spend the money to get it calibrated or set up properly, at least you can do a simple button press to get you into a preset mode that comes pretty darn close. And at 240 hertz, that offers some of the best motion resolution. The only thing better than that this year from that company is restricted to their 4K models. They're giving some of the secret sauce in terms of absolute motion performance to those models. But that's still that's a terrific option too, available in a variety of screen sizes. And compared to the 6400 drops the motion resolution a little bit, and it goes from 240 to 120. Right. But otherwise, it's another smart TV with 3D built in, which is fantastic. It also has my favorite remote. I did a video on this remote, and I have to say, this is like in a sense, a cursor-enabled remote. It has a touchpad where you can actually use it as a literally a touchpad surface. But by just simply holding your button on that, or holding your finger on that button, it produces a cursor on screen that is incredibly accurate and precise. And it's an RF-based remote, so you don't have to do line of sight directly. And it just makes navigating menus and other stuff on screen super easy. But if I have to ding this, the 6400 for one thing, the channel guide sucked. There's something funky about it that needs to be fixed in terms of you just try to navigate the channel guide menu for over-the-air reception, and it just chokes. And also, its audio quality just is frankly weak.
Well, okay, I'm gonna say hold.
I'm going nuts.
No. Well, that's what you do, but that's what we love about you. But the 6400, it's funny. Like, I'm gonna jump straight from the 6400 because, like, weak audio, buy real speakers, right? Like, I understand that they're actually decent speakers showing up in television, but let's go straight, because I'm gonna watch your face on this one because it's gonna be fun. There we go. Is there any television that needs a software upgrade more than Vizio's P-series right now?
No. I want people to quit asking me if they should buy that TV. Some of my friends have purchased it, and they got it for a good Black Friday price. Right. However, that TV is fundamentally flawed in the sense of it is over-sharpening every video source you put into it to the point, unless you can do a side-by-side comparison or you simply don't care, it is making it look like a Photoshop sharpness filter being applied to every source. And it is particularly annoying, I find, with streaming content like Netflix in 4K, as well as Blu-ray movies, or even your own photographs that you want to display on that screen at native resolution, or even 1080p input. It didn't matter what we fed that TV. It was simply adding and a sharpness artifact for anyone who can't visualize it. If you picture something with a dark edge, it's got a white border added to it. And that applies to things like
P-series
noise artifacts. And in particular, if you're dealing with any kind of old film grain or just static in the image, or even compression artifacts in broadcast television, every one of those is being enhanced with that edging artifact. and it's ridiculous that you can't turn it off. It is a bug they've acknowledged, and it's something they are working to fix. They have no time frame though for when this release will be available to the public. I've seen a private demo of a fix for it,
right?
But until they push it publicly, I just don't care about the one-off fix they're going to hand me. So
we should point out. So the Vizio P-series is a 65-inch Ultra HD $2,200 television, a 70-inch.
That was. You could get the 70-inch for $2,000 on Black Friday. Okay. So this shows you what kind of pricing swings you can get.
2,200 MSRP for the 65-inch, $2,500 MSRP, selling for like 20% less than that.
And twice the number of local dimming zones compared to the M series, which is also its full array local dimming as far as the backlight system goes. Fairly rare nowadays for most TVs. They're all awesome technology, and the fact that it has twice as many zones as the M series means that it can be more granular in terms of applying that brightness control across the entire screen surface, and that really, in my opinion, makes it fantastic. And if they would fix this bug and a couple other minor video processing issues, it would be a solid recommendation. But there are other great 4K TVs out there if you're eyeballing stuff right now. Sharp has that new UD27 line, which is another fantastic option. They just introduced that. That is actually I want to say their first THX. It might be the first THX 4K certified TV, for whatever that means. Although THX certification for their 4K stuff involves a few hundred tests. So that TV got put through the ringer, hopefully, and well fluffed out before it reached the public. And that's when I'm looking forward to getting in the next week or two for a full review. And it also solves an issue related to HDMI input with 4K. A lot of these 4K TVs have maybe one port that is not only HDMI 2.0, but also HDCP 2.2, which is a little arcane. But what I'm trying to say is, like the Vizio P-series has one port that'll accept 4K 60. And that is, okay, just be aware of that when you're buying it. And that one port on the P-series also won't, if you try to plug in a lesser resolution, like a 1080i signal or a 720p signal, it offers no video processing for that either, which is just a little bit annoying. Unlike that Sharp I just mentioned, the UD27, or the UD27 line, where they ensured all the ports were basically not only HDMI 2.2, but also HDCP 2.2 as well.
Well,
however,
that's future. As we have learned, future proofing is a good thing with HDTVs.
It's buying the first generation of anything is you're taking some risk, and that's what it's going on currently with the 4K TVs. Unless your manufacturer specifically mentioned an upgrade path, very few AV receivers that are quote unquote 4K, very few TVs that are 4K are going to be able to support the latest generation of hardware, at least on all the ports. There might be one port on these TVs, if any, that supports, basically for using products like, currently the one I can think of off the top of my head is Sony's 4K media player that is now compatible with every 4K TV that supports HDCP 2.2. It has to have that protection enabled, at least on a port. Otherwise, it'll give you a message saying, hey, I will not work with this product. So that's kind of the problem right now with the 4K scene, is just getting the chipsets up to speed. Lack of hardware. When they were building these screens, the chips weren't available to actually support the functions that are going to be necessary in the future. Maybe not so much right now.
So, I mean, and we should also point out there is a dearth of 4K content, as probably everybody knows, unless you're one of the lucky few that can get sort of Netflix in 4K, or you want to buy the Sony package.
Just about every 4K TV now has Netflix in 4K, but the selection of videos on that service is, like you said, limited at best. Yeah. And
1080p will look amazing, though. 1080p should look amazing.
It will look great. It shouldn't look any different than a 1080p TV. Keep that in mind, too. So until we have 4K Blu-ray, which won't happen until late 2015, or you are going to spend the money on something like Sony's 4K player, which is the best looking 4K I've seen so far as any kind of reasonable source material with current run movies, a few at least. Again, that's another limited sort. A lot of content you probably don't want to watch, and it's going to cost you a lot to watch newer content at best. But that is delivering 4K at about 45 megabit for some of their titles, lossless audio, and generally terrific image quality, but pricey. That's like a $700 player, and rentals and purchasing anywhere from $8 to $35 per title, and so it adds up quick.
Old Grizz comments in the chat room. Hackin' Gamer is correct. My Roku has way more flexibility than the smart parts of my TV. And I can almost guarantee you that your Roku box, your Apple TV box will be better supported in 48 months or even perhaps 24 months than a lot of the smart TVs will be. I mean, the manufacturers depend, but it's amazing how dated, especially on the less expensive HDTVs, the onboard support for whatever has become. I mean, it's funny, like I own a Roku 3 at home. I love it. I own an Apple TV. I own several sticks. I have set-top box issues, but it's, you know, it's enormously difficult to buy an HDTV or a UHD or an Ultra TV or an Ultra 4K TV or an Ultra 4K Super HD Wonkmaster 7400 without getting some sort of onboard system. What's nice, it's interesting, like Roku's being built into some televisions with brands most people aren't too familiar with that are actually starting to look pretty good as an interface. But unfortunately, the manufacturer interfaces are going to tend to be really cluttered and really out of control because they tend to be more about marketing share and proving that they have an ecosystem for the development of applications. I kind of have this dream that at CES 2015, we're not going to see demonstrations where somebody spent $500,000 on a contest to develop 3 apps that 2 people will be interested in, you know, as pointing out at what an amazing platform they've created, because we have Android, you know, we have iOS, we have Windows, we have Linux, we have all of these existing platforms that I think should work just fine for televisions.
I'll give a nod to Panasonic for at least keeping the clutter down to a minimum on their smart TVs and really giving you full control over what is displayed on screen. I will say for the 6400 behind me, the H6400 from Samsung, that's got a quad-core processor in it that if you are going to have a smart TV, that one actually provided a very zippy experience. And Samsung continues to have the greatest selection as far as smart TV manufacturers go of video streaming apps, including HBO Go, which not many other companies currently offer. I think that's an exclusive deal with them currently. That might change, though, in the very short term. But that's one thing to keep in mind. It is a lot better in terms of built-in than it was even a couple of years ago or a year ago, I'm finding. And that's true, though. My primary smart device for streaming content is still a video game console that I connect to whatever TV I please. I tend to keep that. I don't use the built-in on my favorite TV currently in my living room. I don't even use the built-in apps. They are a little chunky compared to what even a medium, even an aging game console like the PlayStation 3 can do. So I totally agree with you on that.
The cruelty. I apologize. I don't know who gave the first shout out in the chat room on that, but it's funny. One of the things we saw at CES last year was the Steam box and the prototypes. There's like 14 of them from anywhere from $300-$400 up to several $1 billion, it seemed like. Dell's actually got up, Dell.com/US/P/Alienware-Alpha. And I have not found a review of this yet, but it's essentially their Steam box, right? Alienware Alpha unites the freedom of PC gaming and the ease of a console, forever changing the way you game. Which, as near as I can tell, is a gaming PC with Steam's living room environment on it. Because it's funny, Core i3 4130T dual-core processor, and we're going to talk about why that might not be a good place to start in just a second. Bumping, that's it for the $549 box. $800 gets you a i5 4590T quad-core processor. The GPUs, Nvidia GeForce GTX GPUs, 2 gigabytes. They're being a little vague on that one. The Xbox 360 wireless controller, and yeah, I think this is going to be.
I love Steam, but I'm really not all that jazzed about Steam boxes per se.
Right.
I mean, I want a full-blown PC at that point. If I have $500 and I want a dedicated gaming system, I'm probably buying a PlayStation 4.
Right.
And done, and enjoy that.
It's interesting, right?
Use it because what titles are available through Steam with a box like that?
Well, it's Steam.
You're not playing it in maximum quality for a AAA PC title at 1080p or higher.
Right. Well, okay. So let's. It's Steam big picture. It's not the Steam variation on Linux. So, and let me Forple check that. Operating. So yeah, Windows 8.1 64-bit. The exclusive Alienware Alpha console interface, which basically lets you, scroll between several buttons, one of which launches Steam Big Picture. So you're not going to deal with availability. Although one of the big rumors at CES is that we're going to have Steam's going to be like, we've ported 74 million games to our variation of Linux. But, it seems... I'm trying to find some more details on the GPU, but it seems a little pricey for what it is. That said, I want to say right now, don't buy a dual-core GPU if you want to game with it. Because what I didn't realize when we were talking about Far Cry 4, which Robert Heron is obsessed with.
I love it. It's good stuff. I like all the Far Cry games, though, except for 2.
But Far Cry 4...
2 with malaria.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't think I heard from you for like 3 months when Far Cry 2 came out.
Far Cry 3, I disappeared.
Okay.
Far Cry 2, I haven't even finished. I can barely get into it.
2, 3, it all bleeds together.
Well, it was a classic.
It's crazy, right? So Far Cry 4 just killed the my $380 gaming PC because it won't open with a dual core CPU, and it'll kind of run, with a it'll kind of run with a multi-threaded CPU. It's funny. Like PC World wrote this up. It's the nice thing is there's some inexpensive quad core CPUs I can upgrade that Pentium with there, but it's like, Intel Pentium G3258. Far Cry 4, says PC World, isn't the first AAA title to shout game over at budget gamers this year. Forum goers report similar issues with EA's Dragon Age Inquisition. Activision's Call of Duty Advanced Warfare refused to work with some straight dual-core processors at launch.
Interesting.
And while Ubisoft's own Watch Dogs technically works on dual-core processors, gamers say its performance is utterly abysmal on that hardware.
That surprises me to some degree. Yeah, well, there he is. Min. Hello, Min.
There was an update on, one of the updates on the PC World article, quote, Far Cry 4 mostly utilizes your CPU's third core, barely tapping into the first 2 cores on a processor. This seems like a case of poor PC optimization more than any inherent dual-core hardware limitation. Ubisoft is staying mum on this.
There were numerous issues with Far Cry 4 when it launched. There have been 2 or 3 updates already. It's up to version 104 currently, and it needs a few more. I will say going from 103 to 104 was a big performance difference. It became really playable on my hardware, which isn't state-of-the-art. It's probably a generation old now, or maybe 2. But still, plenty to run it. I'm running at 19 by 12. And I prefer to run at 60 hertz with all the eye candy turned up, but with things like VSync enabled. But still, all of these games, you are playing beta tester if you think that buying a game on the day of release for the PC console is a smart idea. Well, if you can withstand the pressure and hold off for at least the first sale, you're guaranteed a better experience just because the game's gone through a couple of patches before you get your hands on it. And that's like today, even with the 104 patch, I was flying around in the wingsuit, smacked into the ground, and it broke through the game world, and I'm falling through the core of the universe, free falling endlessly until it finally hit some water object in the very center of the world, where I then drowned. Good times, and I was enjoying that. But at least there's a good save function built into that game, so I didn't have to go too far back. So
I hate that feeling.
Still, though. These are massive games, and you are playing beta tester if you buy this on the day it comes out for any game. And talk to anyone who has played Unity with another AAA title that was out recently. And again, without a few patches, these games run like, frankly, I don't know what the heck they're running them on when they release them, but they are optimized much after the fact. So and hang in there.
It'll be interesting to see. And just let me make it clear, it won't launch with a dual core CPU, a hyper-threaded dual core CPU that offers 4 cores, or virtual cores, however you want to call it. It will launch. Performance isn't hot. And what's interesting is that there's a i7. You don't need an i7. Don't even go there, Burke.
That's what I have.
Well, don't you start either. But
not a state of the art one either. It's
I think. Well, I'm still running a Core i7 920, and I'm just now getting to the point where something other than wanting to reduce the heat load on my house is making me want to upgrade it. But It'll be interesting to see whether or not, as part of Far Cry's evolution, whether or not it starts running on dual-core processors in the near future, if they're just going to ignore that sort of optimization in there. Man, and did you get a chance to look at, because I didn't find it until late, HardOCP went nuts on Far Cry 4, the video card performance and IQ preview.
I love that.
Now, this is a little dated at this point. This came out November 21st, but we were off on Thanksgiving. Where it's funny looking at that. It's like, there's NVIDIA put together a huge Far Cry 4 graphics performance and tweaking guide, which is really worth spending some quality time with. But it's like NVIDIA HBAO plus ambient occlusion, DX11 God rays, percentage closer soft shadows. And then they basically post the entire reviewer's guide that NVIDIA put together for Far Cry 4 up on HardOCP, because that's the way Kyle rolls, yo.
Nice.
And yeah, it's funny looking at the performance impact. And a lot of this, of course, took place before they started fixing all the broken stuff.
That's the thing. And I like that guide, though, for HardOCP's work,
right.
Just simply to compare it to what a tool, say, like GeForce Experience does for you automatically. For the most part, I tried there's actually an NVIDIA preset
right.
in Far Cry 4 as far as the graphic settings go. It looked beautiful, but it ran like a dog on my older hardware. I'm using a GTX 680,
right.
And it didn't look so. I mean, it looked great, but it was just running slow. I then load up GeForce Experience and have it optimize the game, and it
right.
used a completely different setup, and that ran much better, very close to 60 frames a second for the most part. Oh, that game is just so much fun.
Well, it's funny. Oops, sorry.
But I want to compare what the GeForce Experience app does for the majority of my settings versus what Kyle came up with at HardOCP, because maybe he found a setting or two that needs to be updated at this point.
It was interesting. One of the big things, though, was like SLI wasn't working very well, and, quote, the AMD Crossfire profile for Far Cry 4 is currently disabled in this driver while AMD works with Ubisoft to investigate an issue where AMD Crossfire configurations are not performing as intended. And then, of course, an update is expected shortly. So if you're running AMD Crossfire, you aren't in Far Cry 4 at this point. And it seemed like there was some pretty serious issues in SLI, at least for some of the people playing with it. So, yeah.
Beta tester. Play the beta tester game. Yeah. Like I said, wait for that first sale. Then by then, usually all the patches or enough patching has been happening to make the game super playable on more hardware, at better frame rates, fewer glitches, all around a better experience. It's a shame that if you want to go down this path on a day of release, it's just the way it is. Had to update my video driver, had to update my game settings, had to tweak everything, had to wait for a patch or two till it really became playable and fun. It was more work than fun in the beginning of that game, but at least for right now, I am enjoying the storyline a little bit. Yeah, I am eaten by an animal at least once a day if I play that game. So, unless you're in Shangri-La where the tiger is your friend, but no, unfortunately. But I will say it is the best looking of the Far Cry games, without a doubt. I mean, I thought 3 looked great. 4 is phenomenal. The lighting engine, the graphics, the wildlife in general. And I think the playability of it, if you ever played 3 at all and you liked it, there's just simply more of the fun stuff in 4, and it gets right to it, and it's super easy. And the combination of that with some new vehicles to make getting around a little bit more interesting, especially the ability to fly with the little helicopter in the game, is just terrific. And there's something for everyone. Yeah, snakes too. At least you hear them. It's good to wear headphones with that game. At least you can hear the animals right before they chomp on you. Give you a second to run away. Oh, yeah, and you can ride elephants, too, if you're into that whole thing.
Be afraid. Yeah, it's funny. So the Alienware Alpha, NVIDIA Maxwell graphics. So it's like 2 gigabyte NVIDIA Maxwell graphics. So I wonder if it's the equivalent of a 750 Ti in that box, or if it's the mobile version. Which would be interesting if they essentially created a small mobile box.
Probably is the mobile chipset. I would be willing to guess, unless there's room for a full-size card in there, that would make more sense. That and the efficiency of it as well. Mobile hardware's come a long way, though, but still. And the thing about that box, it's probably focused on 1080p resolution of your average home theater TV. So it's not like you're running that game at crazy high resolutions. And I'd be curious to know, are they doing specific optimizations for the titles that run through that box, just to help eke out the best performance possible? It probably has a built-in preset for using that kind of hardware with the games that are available as well. So you're not suddenly, enabling a setting or a preset or something that would just choke the performance. And hopefully that's what they're doing. I'd actually like to mess around with one for a few days just to get a good feel for it.
Yeah. Nvidia Maxwell GTX graphics, up to 8 gigabytes of RAM and 2 terabytes of hard drive space. Yeah, it's looking tiny. I will be curious. We wait, ladies and gentlemen, with bated breath, but we do not wait, ladies and gentlemen, for a better shaving experience. Let's talk about Harry's.com, and I want to let you know about a promo code, TWiCH Holiday. So, this episode of This Week in Computer Hardware brought to you by Harry's. You may notice today that I am actually clean shaven, and I actually used a Harry's razor to do this. And what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, is the limited edition Winter Winston set from Harry's, which includes a festive blue-handled razor. These are actually, this is a thing now, right? If you're not familiar with having shaving products delivered to your door, you need to go take a look at Harry's.com. And it's really simple. You select the razors you need. They show up at your house. It's awesome. They look fantastic. The blades are high quality. I did not shred myself. Robert's seen what happens when I use poor blades. I bleed. Like
you do.
It's a hot, bloody mess. It's horrible.
What happened?
If you don't want to, you don't have to get the charcoal gray handle. You can also, the ice blue handle. You can get a charcoal gray handle. It's funny. It's a razor. It feels nice in your hand. There's a sleekness to it. It's a little more solid than a disposable razor, without being like ridiculously old school. It's got a nice long handle, so it's not like using, one of those razors that feels like you're handling sort of half of a pencil instead of an entire pencil. They do an aftershave moisturizer. It's kind of crazy. The blades are made in their own factory in Germany, and they just keep things cheap, which is really, really awesome. You get the razor, you get 3 blades, a tubular foaming shave gel or shave cream, free shipping for just $25 in the Winter Winston set. It is a classic gift for the man who has everything. But what's really cool is you can subscribe and never have to deal, as somebody who is traditionally always having to deal with being like, okay, I've been using this razor for 6 weeks. Painful things are happening every time I get near the bathroom and use the razor. And then, of course, you go to the local drugstore, and they now have, like, the razors are now sealed in some sort of plastic fortress of mayhem, because apparently that is the thing to steal if you're in the drugstore, at least in my part of the world. These are pretty cool. You get the basic set. You can get blades shipped to your house, and they're nice. They look good. They feel good. And you can get $5 off the limited edition Winter Winston set if you use the code TWiCH Holiday. Remember that? I mentioned that. Harrys.com. Use the code TWiCH Holiday. Get $5 off the limited edition Winter Winston set. Doesn't matter if you're a new customer, an existing customer. Harrys, HARRYS.com. Enter the code TWiCH Holiday. And it's a shave that's good enough to gift, and we want to thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. And I got to say, I have become a big fan of their shaving lotion. This is good stuff. Actually, let me try not to make too much noise, because I'll watch Burke's head explode. Can I make the noise? The plastic noise. I got to say, the shave cream is really good. For me to use a shave cream, like I normally shave in the shower because I have no hair, I have a thick beard. It's a painful shaving experience. And I got to say that the shave cream that Harry's is using has not caused me emotional trauma. That is a big statement coming from me, because those of you who have been watching me for years know that I like to avoid shaving at any opportunity. I go for the rugged look. It's Robert too, apparently. He wears it better than I do. But seriously, check them out. Harrys.com, TWiCH Holiday at the checkout. Get $5 off the limited edition Winter Winston set. And take care of your holiday shopping early and painlessly for the comfort or from the comfort of your home. And we want to thank them for supporting This Week in Computer Hardware. And we should probably talk more about technology. Have you been following the SSD torture test that TechReport's been doing?
Just utterly fascinating in terms of taking a lot of popular drives and not abusing them, but putting them through the most rigorous, strenuous testing you can possibly do, I think, in terms of just read and write until they fail. And to give you an idea then of potentially, under the worst case scenario, which one remains supreme. And that to me is fascinating to no end. And their methodology in terms of just how much data it takes to really wear one of these drives out. They've come a long way. And some people are still hesitant maybe because it's all flash memory. And it's like, well, if it goes, it goes. But I think this endurance report should give you some peace of mind using SSD day in and day out, that it takes an awful lot of data to slow one of these things down and to finally wreck it over the long term.
Well,
so,
good
news.
The guy from the Tech Reporter wrote this up. One, he has one of the best opening lines in a technology review ever. Quote, "More than a year ago, we drafted 6 SSDs for a suicide mission," unquote. That's just awesome. The second thing, though, is it's like 4 drives have died already, but, quote, "Each one absorbed far more damage than its official endurance specification promised and far more than the vast majority of users are likely to inflict." Sorry. Jeff, good writing, me, bad reading. The last victim fell at 1.2 petabytes. And the 840 Pro and a second HyperX 3K have now reached 2 freaking petabytes of writes. So to put that into perspective, Jeff writes, the SSDs in his main desktop have logged less than 2 terabytes of writes over the past couple years. So this is epic, right? We've talked a bunch back on TechZilla. We've talked a bunch here on TWiCH about SSD reliability issues because there were some problems with it at some point. But this is crazy. This is a ridiculous lifetime, and it's funny. So now I bought a Samsung 840 last week. Now I wish I'd bought the Samsung 840 Pro. Not that I will ever hit 2 petabytes of writing, but for people who've been asking us, do we still trust Samsung's given the issue with the slowdowns over time on the Pro and possibly the standard 840s? When I talked to Al Malventano over at PC Per, he said go buy the Samsungs. I bought a 1 terabyte drive last week because SSD prices have officially hit stupid cheap even without Black Friday. Now I just need a 4 terabyte drive.
There was supposed to be a firmware update for the Evo model, supposedly related to the issue you just brought up, but I have noticed no performance issues whatsoever, right. And I still keep an eye out. Actually, I should run my updater just to see if there's a firmware update for it. But
there's a difference between if you edit video for a living versus if you write for a living, right? The volume of data being written on your drive is going to be vastly different. But they have acknowledged, Samsung's acknowledged it. They're working on it. They've played around with some beta. There is one you can actually do. You can actually download now, although it's considered kind of a beta fix and only to be used if you're having serious issues.
Ain't doing no beta with my SSD. I have had an SSD drive fail though, and that reminds you and should remind everyone to back up your most important files, because when it goes, it literally is like it just doesn't exist, and that can be heartbreaking if there's something important on that ultra fast drive that you need and you can't get, and it's gone. And so, but like I said, read that report if you haven't.
Dropbox, crash plan, external drive. Just
bought some flash drives over Black Friday. There were some SanDisks, just some USB drives, just to put stuff on and use for various testing. But yeah, have your data in more than one location.
Right.
But again, that article is awesome in the sense that it just shows that there are drives out there that you can sling a ton of data at and have really no realistic performance degradation, or you're just going to get great longevity out of it. These drives are really built well, and I expect them to only get better over time. But compared to those first couple of gens where there were chipset issues and you should update your firmware on this particular model or that model, I'm seeing a lot less of that, and it's just getting to be a commodity item now with great reliability and great long-term performance. And thank goodness, because especially in notebooks. There is no slower component, or the single slowest part in most computers nowadays is that hard drive.
Yeah.
And that changing that to an SSD changes everything.
Yeah.
And
I had somebody.
there's no better upgrade.
Somebody had sent me an all-in-one, and I was like, why is it opening everything? I'm like, oh, it's got a traditional rotating hard drive. Eric Duckman, chat room, pointed out the Samsung SSD 840 EVO performance restoration software is officially out and available. And there was a very long link to that. Samsung.com/business/mini-site/mini-slight/ssd/us/html/support/downloads.html, because I'm a sucker for reading.
I just checked my firmware.
Yeah.
With the Samsung Magician utility, it is updated.
Yeah. And if users restored performance with the Samsung Performance Restoration version 1.0 software, you do not need to use the Samsung Performance Restoration version 1.1. The tool does not work.
Okay.
Tools is, it's, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you heard what Burke said at home, but it was fundamentally accurate, but not naughty. But still might get you slapped at the dinner table. So Nvidia G-Sync, Alan wrote this up also for PC Per. Quote, a look into reported G-Sync display flickering. We've been tracking NVIDIA's G-Sync for a while now. The comment section on Ryan's initial article erupted with questions, and many of those were answered in a follow-on interview with NVIDIA's Tom Peterson. Right, so the idea is you get rid of the fixed refresh rate. You only set a new frame to the display when it's just finished rendering by the GPU. You get the low latency benefits of V-Sync off, combined with the image quality you get with V-Sync on. I think if you've been listening to the podcast, you're painfully familiar with that. But Alan gets his pair of ROG Swifts, and some other folks I knew, Alan writes, had also received theirs. Before I could get mine set up and get some quality gaming time in, my bro Fifth Dread and his wife both reported a very obvious flicker on their ROG Swifts within the first few minutes of hooking them up. They reported the flicker during game loading screens and mid-game during background content loading. Some forums comments about that. So it's an interesting kind of article that discuss, first of all, they lay down the base kind of the jargon. The screen refresh rate option you see in Windows display properties is actually a carryover from the CRT days, LCD panel pixels. Talk about how they engineer faster pixels. But they put together some testing to try to identify it. And there's this little ripple if you look at this graph. The measured panel section brightness over time during a stall event. Panel redraw is in sync with the frames coming from the GPU at this rate. The center section, however, represents what takes place when the input from the GPU suddenly drops to 0. In the above case, the game briefly stalled, then resumed a few frames at 144 144 frames per second, then stalled again for a much longer period of time. So that basically means everything sort of bleeds towards white. And then G-Sync has a failsafe that forces a redraw every approximately 33 milliseconds. And what you are seeing are the pixels intermittently bleeding towards white and periodically being pulled back down to the appropriate brightness by a scan. So this is interesting. Alan points out it's not limited to the ROG Swift. All variable refresh panels they have tested, including 4K, see this effect to a more or less degree than reported. It's less perceptible at lower maximum refresh rate settings. It's not present at fixed refresh rates, i.e. if you turn G-Sync off or with non-G-Sync panels. So if you're seeing a flicker, you're not crazy on your G-Sync panel. During the research and drafting of this piece, we reached out to and worked with NVIDIA to discuss the issue. Quote, NVIDIA, all LCD pixels values relax after refreshing. As a result, the brightness value that is set during the LCD scanline update slowly relaxes until the next refresh. This means LCDs have some slight variation in brightness. In this case, lower frequency refreshes will appear slightly brighter than the high frequency refreshes by 1% to 2%. And when games are running normally, i.e. not waiting at a load screen nor a screen capture, users will never see this slight variation in brightness value. In the rare cases where frame rates can plummet to very low levels, there's a very slight brightness variation, barely perceptible to the human eye, which disappears when normal operations resumes. So basically, you're apparently hitting physics And PC is working with Nvidia, Alan writes, and hope to find a way to alleviate the flickering with either a hardware or software change in the future. It's interesting. And frustrating, I think. I
want one of these monitors, and I'm hoping it becomes popular so that they are widely available from more than, say, one manufacturer and at better pricing, too.
There's several models out, but that
ability to sync the frame rate to the monitor and have that happen automatically, eliminate tearing. I end up enabling in all of my games V-Sync just because I can't stand it when the screen tears. I mean, even though you get that higher performance by leaving V-Sync disabled, I just think visually it looks like crap. So I have to turn that on. So then I'm relying on the computer better not ever stutter below 60 frames a second. Otherwise, it goes into half or quarter frame rates beyond that for at least a short period of time. And to be able to smooth all that out on the monitor side is really what I'm looking forward to with something like G-Sync technology. I like Nvidia hardware, and if that's the simple barrier to entry, so be it. But there needs to be more monitors. I want to see this. I want to see this technology out there now, rather than it was kits before now. Now hopefully we'll see a few decent monitors appear in the short while.
There are a few decent monitors, but let's see. I want to say there's at least 4, maybe 6 shipping. ASUS, Acer, starting at like $267 for 144 hertz 24-inch monitor at ASUS. 27-inch 19x20 Nvidia G-Sync from Acer for $600. There's a few out there, not a lot of them.
And also, I'd like to see, because of the trend toward 4K monitors,
right?
Instead of running at 4K, a lot of these 4K displays will also run at 1080p at 120 hertz, similar bandwidth. So I don't know if the requirement for 144 hertz on a G-Sync monitor is something in stone or that has some fudge to it. But either way, with refresh rate capabilities, I want to see that syncing and that real-time syncing with the graphics card itself, just to eliminate these long-standing issues when you want to run it at high frame rates. And there's a hitch in performance suddenly where rather than on a traditional monitor, you get something either with tearing or you get a sudden frame rate reduction. If that can be eliminated, that would make the PC gamer in me a happy camper. And I'm kind of holding off on any serious monitor purchase. I've been kind of waiting on that particular technology. And I do need a new monitor. I would love to get like something in the 27, 28-inch range for my primary display.
I should also point out that AMD has a competing yet open technology, and ne'er the twain shall meet.
Gotcha.
Yeah. MSI GeForce GTX 970 4GB gaming graphics card review. I'm not going to go too deep on this because Ryan Shrout's going to be back next week. But this is a badass card. I'm just going to put it out there and keep it simple. It is black and red, as Ryan points out, which is probably not thrilling to NVIDIA's marketing department, but black and red's kind of a MSI thing for GPUs. Power consumption is everything you kind of expect. Performance is pretty crazy. He was able to push the MSI GTX 970 gaming card from the reference base clock speed of 1,114 megahertz up to, quote, an impressive 1,364 megahertz. That's a 250 megahertz offset. Pushes the boost clock to 1,503 megahertz. They were able to maintain a clock speed of 1,578 megahertz when they were looping Metro last light over like 30 minutes of gaming. That's a 21% higher clock speed than factory. That's a big deal. GPU temperature never went over 70 C, and the fan only went up about 120 hertz. That's just crazy pants in a really cool way. It's not going to be the hugest difference in terms of frame rates, but in Metro last night, the overclock settings result in a 12% faster average frame rate when compared to the stock settings that were already overclocked. And that means you are ahead of the performance of a stock Radeon R9 290X. They're available. They're like $350. There's like 7 GTX 970 SKUs in stock. What's crazy, what really is actually awesome, it's not crazy. MSI's GTX 970 gaming card comes with 20% boost in clock speed if you want to get crazy with it. And you get either Assassin's Creed Unity, Far Cry 4, or The Crew with it. So I think, apparently it's out of stock again at Amazon.com, but should return shortly. Of course it is. Oh, wait, in stock, but may require an extra 1 to 2 days to process. So now it's $360. So Ryan says the GTX 970 is definitely a better value than the GTX 980, but AMD has strong competition in terms of the R9 290X and R9 290. 290Xs are selling for $350. R9 290s are selling for well under $300. AMD has a bit of a performance per dollar edge. Gold Award for PC Perspective, pretty serious performance. It's a good time to be buying a $350 GPU. I'll also say it's a good time to be building a very, very small gaming PC. The DirectCU Mini from ASUS is essentially a 970. The 970 DirectCU Mini, or the Direct Comper Mini from ASUS, is a GTX 970 that is designed to fit in a mini ITX environment.
Nice. I love small computers, so cram that hardware into something a little bit smaller than a reference board. Yeah. And it gives me more options in terms of what I can build with it. There's no crazy overclocking on this. Modest factory overclock on the GTX 970 core, so it's running at 1088 over, compared to the stock 1050 megahertz, 1228 megahertz boost clock. Memory is not overclocked and remains at the stock 7 gigahertz speed. But it's okay. It's tiny. It's really tiny. Yeah. Mini ITX or micro ATX too. I can't even imagine building a full-size ATX system anymore unless you simply need something on that board. Just the space saving and the although once you get into mini ITX, it gets that level of miniaturization can end up costing just as much as a larger board would. Well, but it's funny though, if you can keep it under like 300 or 400 watts, then you can actually use an external power supply and an adapter. So you can actually, because what I'm thinking is like it's super tiny PCI Express adapter, and I can create a freaking pizza box, like a quarter, a personal size pan pizza PC. Finding cases I like. That's the challenge with systems that are either dedicated mini ITX or micro ATX. Micro ATX, you have definitely more options to choose from. Right. At least in terms of something that you want to live with for long term. But I always think too for home theater PCs as well. I love the mini system simply because you can put them into a system that fits very nicely within a rack or with other home theater gear. So, and being able to put decent graphics like that into a mini system makes me happy. It will take 2 slots, so you need to make sure it'll actually fit. On the motherboard. Most of the mini ITX boards I look at, or the cases at least, do have 2 slots. So I'd be curious to see though. That might be the challenge, but man, good stuff. No ship dates, no pricing, although a product page is up at on the ASUS website, and you can go to PCPer.com for that link if you want to see some more of it. Pardon me while I fix a terrible moment of my computer exploding because I'm on camera. Boom! I don't do a whole lot of overclocking anymore. Definitely not the GPU side. If anything, the card runs hot enough as it is. And that's often the noisiest part in the computer, or at least my builds of late, have been graphics related as far as air cooling systems go. For a while, there was not much of a benefit to CPU overclocking. Michael and I built a couple of video editing machines for Jadert and another guy over in the studios, and it was crazy the amount of performance boost we were getting out of overclocking some of the latest generation Intel processors. So it might be worth reconsidering overclocking again, especially if you need to render things really fast. Gaming, not as huge of an important performance improvement, but for something like rendering video, we were looking at like huge, ridiculous performance improvements for free. That's something also that pushes the CPU at 100%. Gaming, generally speaking, doesn't. So true, at least on any kind of modern CPU. Oh my goodness! I should take a moment right now to thank Mandrill. This episode of Twitch is brought to you by Mandrill. It's a scalable, reliable, and secure email infrastructure service trusted by more than 300,000 customers. It's easy to set up and integrate with existing apps. It's fast. You can integrate, deliver, track, and analyze email, detailed delivery reports, advanced analytics, and, quote, a friendly interface, because, quite frankly, email should be friendly to manage.
just get your entire team from developers to marketers so they can easily monitor and evaluate email performance. Is it working? Is it delivering what you want? Mandrill is going to help you figure that out. They got servers all over the world so they can deliver your email in, quote, milliseconds. That's fast, people. It started out as an idea in 2010, and Mandrill is now the largest email as a service platform on the market. Use it to send automated one-on-one email like password resets, welcome messages. You can use it for marketing emails, customized newsletters. They made it for developers who love documentation, integrations, high delivery rates, webhooks, and analytics. And it's nice. Flexible template options, custom tagging, advanced tracking, and reports. Mandrill is the only email infrastructure service with a mobile app that lets you monitor delivery and troubleshoot from wherever you are. If you need to make sure your stuff's working on a mobile device, Mandrill is going to let you do it. It's powerful, it's scalable, it's affordable, but you don't have to take our word for it. You can try it out because Mandrill is offering the TWiT audience a special deal. You sign up at mandrill.com, use the promo code TWiT. You'll receive 50,000 free email sends per month for your first 6 months of service. That's Mandrill, MANDRILL.com. Use the promo code TWiT and find out just how awesome managing email can be. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Mandrill for supporting this episode of TWiCH and helping us bring the show to you. Codecs, Windows 10. I'm actually I'm using Windows 10 on this laptop right now. Cool. It has been my primary machine for several weeks now. It's interesting that Windows 10 it's not going to be out until the next big update. The next build of Windows 10 Technical Preview, which is not going to show up until next year, which is 3-4 weeks away, maybe longer. But they're talking about MKV, FLAC, HEVC, which is H.265, all built into Windows 10, which would be really awesome, especially if it shows up in the next preview build. Gabriel Al posted a tweet. Keen-eyed Pound Windows insiders will notice something cool about this pick, something to look forward to in the new year. And it's really funny because if you look at it, it's the Windows Media Player. If you can dig far enough into that one, and there it is. Yeah. It's just, I like codec support being built into operating systems. Those are all FLAC files running in the Windows Media Player. That's a good thing. So yeah, I would think it would be cool if the MKV and H.265 support built in would be really, really sweet.
The MKV wrapper.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much. I wish game consoles would take that cue as well and just make incredible codec support available, but no, they're a little more proprietary. But on the PC side of things, Microsoft really should just, I really hope Windows 10 becomes like a turning point for the Windows platform in terms of just putting that stuff built in, so you're not going, oh, well, here, I can always grab VLC and it will just play nicely in that. So, which I will still probably do anyway, but still.
So DisplayPort 1.2, are there DisplayPort 1.2 switches at this point?
HDCP.
Okay.
DisplayPort is, DisplayPort has 1.2 and 1.3 coming out. DisplayPort already supports things like, 4K at 60 hertz.
Right.
It already has the bandwidth to do that, and it's compatible with HDMI and all the copy protection schemes as well. Looking in the future for 4K displays and for switching hardware, and the reason why your AV receiver that supports 4K right now probably won't support some of the new upcoming products that'll require a protected pathway for the video, in particular for HDCP 2.2, that the new 4K streaming appliances that will require that, if it isn't built into the chipset already, it just simply won't work. So I know of one Onkyo receiver that I have listed on my website, but that's one of the few I know of currently that has one port that will support HDCP 2.2 devices. Right. So, and the only HDCP 2.2 device I'm even aware of right now is that Sony 4K media player, the media streaming box, which is great. And there's also at Audioholics a great article as well that I link to. I have an article on my own website, how to watch 4K, and in there at the end I link to a really terrific Audioholics article that just highlights the madness of it all right now. Right. Until the new chipsets come out, Like if you look at something like Panasonic's new AX900U that's not even out yet, every port on that, and Panasonic actually makes the chipsets that are needed to do this, but for that TV, that's going to be their flagship model for LCD technology. Full array local dimming, some of the best color performance that initial reports say it's going to be beautiful. But every port on that TV is going to be 4K 60. Right. It'll have a DisplayPort port as well. I believe 1.2, maybe 1.3. Either way, that's going to be one of the most feature-rich televisions that I know a lot of people are looking forward to getting their hands on as well. And Panasonic's just looking at LCD technology as being their plasma replacement. So with things like full array local dimming, being able to produce that inky dark black level and good dark detail, similar to what a plasma could do, is their primary focus at the moment. OLED is kind of on pause. It's weird. I know CNET's currently testing or they should be testing shortly, the new 4K OLED from LG. And that is on my short list of things I want to check out as well. But going back to HDCP2.2, things like video switches, where you want to increase the number of ports. Maybe you have that one 4K 60 port on your new HD TV, your 4K TV, and you want to be able to add devices in the future. There's not a Switch product yet that has HDCP2.2 at any price point that I can find. I have a 4K amplifier that also does not support HDCP2.2. So if I want to say spread that beautiful Sony 4K media player out to multiple displays at once to use as a reference device, I don't have a means of doing that currently, which is a little annoying. I have a specialized box that I actually use for 4K playback. Yes. And I actually do have one specialized box that you can load 4K videos up onto and send to multiple displays at once. But, that's kind of a one-trick pony as far as, it's not a consumer product. So don't be in a terrible rush. And besides that, like we were talking about earlier, 4K content is still a growing proposition. There just isn't much of it. And even Amazon hasn't started their 4K streaming services yet, let alone your local cable or satellite provider. Well, so
it's also because it's going to, in the case of a huge number of the vast majority of movies, maybe not the movies made in the last 2 or 3 years, but the vast majority of movies are going to require, most movies weren't captured at 4K. They weren't transcoded at 4K. So they're going to require a rescan, recompression. It's great, right? The Wizard of Oz was scanned and restored at 8K. So I'm sure at some point there's going to be a 4K version of the Wizard of Oz that's going to look extraordinary. But the vast majority
4K is a popular storage format, though, on the back end.
For movies even shot in the last 2 years, 3 years,
Yeah, but anything that's going to be archived, at least for the studio stuff, even if they scan it at 8K, which is the best I'm currently aware of, they still store it at compressed 4K. They compress it down to 4K just for practical use. And then from there, they can then create the Blu-ray or hopefully with that content ready to go, then be able to offer that a more compressed 4K stream.
But that's like 1,000 out of the 50,000 commonly watched movies in the world.
That would still be such a tremendous leap over what we currently have available to us. There's literally a handful of 4K titles on Netflix. Unless you're a fan of some of the episodic content, there's very few movies. And even on Sony's player, as good as some of their 4K looks, I should fire it up again just for a quick confirmation. But as far as like 2013 and 2014 movie titles, very few. And that will hopefully all change in the near future. And I at least give props to Sony for creating that player platform with, as far as I can tell, the best current image quality you can currently receive as far as a 4K source goes, with things like lossless audio to create a really good cinematic experience if you have the hardware. And then now they've finally opened that device up to more than just the Sony TVs. It used to be restricted to just Sony only, but now it'll work with any TV that has a HDCP2.2 port. At 4K, so
that's a bit. It was great that they made the box, but it was, when it was Sony only, it was like so close and yet so far. We had a question out of the chat room asking about H.265. It's a video compression standard that is kind of running around arm in arm with 4K. Basically, it's a successor to H.264 MPEG-4, and jointly developed by the ISO IEC Moving Picture Experts Group, aka MPEG, and the ITU-T Video Coding Experts Group is ISO/IEC 23008-2 MPEG-H Part 2 and ITU-T H.265. Essentially, they thought it was going to quadruple. The early reports, like Broadcom, I think at CES 2 years ago, were saying, like, you're going to be able to fit 4 1080p channels in the space of a single channel. It's looking like it's doubling the data compression ratio compared to H.264. Or you can deliver, like, every time we have a big compression codec or codec improvement, the idea is you can either have the same rate with better quality, or you can just squeeze the heck and try to fit 4K in the space of a 1080p stream. It doesn't look like it's going to actually work to put a 4K stream in 1080p space, but instead of a cable company doing 4K and taking up 4 channels worth of space, it's probably going to take up 2 channels worth of space, possibly less. It'll support up to 8K UHD. And hold on one second, because the other big competitor, and a friend of mine works with it, so I'm going to bring it up, would be VP9, which is the next-gen open video codec that is open and royalty-free from Google. Wasn't a huge fan of VP8, VP9, which is supported in like Chrome, Firefox, and Opera under HTML5. That's a really interesting codec and competitor. I'm gonna say it. Like nobody's gonna distribute video in VP9 other than YouTube, I think, at least at this point. But H.265 and VP9 are both codecs that are trying to make giant video transportable over the internets. Mr. Heron.
Also, over time, all compression schemes get better.
Yeah.
I mean, even with DVD, the latest, the last of the DVDs that were really authored, the encoding hardware was so much better than when the format had first started that the quality overall improved, and the decoders could still decode that newer quality content. And you'll see the same thing with H.265. Although be aware that, I mean, while most of the 4K TVs, if it's going to do Netflix streaming in 4K, say, and that will have H.265 support, that's the requirement for it. Right. But you look at a 4K camera like the new GoPro Black, that is actually saving in H.264.
Very big files.
But also some TVs don't have support for 4K files with H.264 encoding, namely the Vizio P-series. So Vizio is going back and forth whether they can add that or not. They don't want to do it in software. They'd rather do it and have hardware support for it so that it doesn't cook the CPU on these things. So
hate that.
So that's the other thing too, with the pitfalls of your source content versus where you want to play it back. Likewise, though, it is interesting stuff. And talking again about Netflix really quick, they're saying that their streams are about 15, 16 megabit for 4K streaming. Whereas like with the downloadable content I was looking at on Sony's system, that was getting up into the 45 or so megabit. It wasn't streaming live, but that was a very short wait, and then you could start playback on that. But I really want Blu-ray at this point, the Blu-ray equivalent of 4K, just so we can get that bit rates to support pristine video quality in addition to lossless audio. I am looking forward to the day that these streaming services besides Sony will offer lossless audio formats. That difference to me is just as important as going from 2K to 4K resolution. If you have the opportunity to switch back and forth between Dolby Digital and Dolby True HD or DTS and DTS HD Master Audio, it is night and day on even a modest home theater system. And that to me is as exciting as anything. Also too, with just beyond 4K, it's more than resolution. It's things like contrast, in particular, the punch of a picture, color quality. Haven't even touched color quality and the standards that can be adopted, or within the 4K standard, there is a spec for improving the color palette, expanding it to richer, more saturated colors than we can currently legally do within the HD video spec. So none of that. We're not even halfway into how good 4K can be. It's going to be a while, especially on the being able to capture and encode and deliver extended color quality is going to be a challenge going forward as well. More data, and the hardware to do it. So it's early and it's just going to get better.
Yeah,
so.
I like the metaphor that Jeff Morrison uses in an article up on CNET. What is HEVC, high efficiency video coding, H.265 and 4K compression explained? Which, if you want to get nerdy on this, it's absolutely worth your time. Pretty much everything Jeff writes is worth your time.
Heck yeah.
But I love how he puts it. More compression, applesauce. Better compression, more apples in the same space.
Truly. And then what you said, too, about a 50% improvement or a 50% bandwidth reduction to achieve similar quality when you think about H.264 and 265, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively.
Yeah. No, and it's funny. It's like, Downton Abbey looked fantastic on Netflix, and then I bought the Blu-rays, and I realized just exactly how much color and detail were lost, and I thought to myself, this is why we need 4K on a freaking disc, people. Ryan's not here, but he wants you to check out PC Per's holiday gift guide. He says hello to the internet. Starting with, ladies and gentlemen, first thing on the list, Intel's Core i7. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Just scroll down a little bit, Burke. Scroll a little bit for me. Scroll. The 4790K Haswell processor. Their pick for the best high-performance processor. GPUs, which of course include Nvidia and AMD. Haha. Crucial MX100s, their budget SSD picks. That awesome Corsair Carbide Air 240 case. So many more things on this list. Some are expensive, some are inexpensive, but you're only going to find them, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to PCPer.com and read their Holiday 2014 gift guide. And I'm going to say,
a new computer.
I actually, somebody in the building bought one. The ECS Leva Mini PC is on their list. And $155, no fans, and it's got potential as an XBMC box. Just want to say that.
Oh.
HeronFidelity.com, favorite gear. What is that all about, Mr. Heron?
Yeah, it's stuff I've reviewed, tested, own. I get asked a lot for product recommendations, so I finally just created a section of the site that's dedicated to that kind of thing. And I answer a lot of questions on Twitter. Anybody, I get thrown all sorts of good ideas and great questions, and I can interact with folks that way too. I do a lot of that. But there you go. It's something I just created to make it visually a little easier to go, you know what? What's that cable you like, Robert? Or what's that TV? Or what's that projector? I am asked those questions daily, and that's just a quick way to go pick my brain, and then from there you can come get a hold of me directly, and I'll dig into it a little bit further with you. Yeah, what wall mount? What projector mount? All of it. I ended up finally just organizing my thoughts and putting them all right there, in addition to just articles I write under the blog section and elsewhere. Yes, Sanus mounts. I'm telling you, there's a reason to spend a little bit extra money compared to the cheap mounts. Cheap mounts are great. I love them. I use them, but having a mount that just is fully adjustable, easily, and works.
Thoughtfully designed instead of whatever they can hammer out of the factory in China for the least amount of money.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's a benefit to that too. Those generally work well, and you get a lot of value out of it, but there's a lot more assembly, less adjustability. And if you got to be a little more careful doing the install, but otherwise, mount your TV anyway. Get it up off that cheesy base stand that might tip over and hurt a kid or something. Or you have the relatives coming over for the holidays and you want to protect that brand new investment. Wall mount that sucker and get it out of the way quickly. And that's all I'm going to say about wall mounting.
If you've ever seen your 2-year-old do chin-ups on an HDTV, you'll be happy you went for the big burly monitor stand. The big burly monitor wall mount. Don't ask me how I know.
You know what? I show people how to do that too. It's not that hard to install a wall mount in most wall surfaces, especially wood frame construction. That I have installed so many of those, and look at that. No wall bracket to assemble. That's just one bar with 3 bolt points. Done.
And we live in earthquake country, so we take our installations pretty seriously.
Oh, see, that's great too, because it also has those screws right on the top for doing leveling adjustment after the fact. So if you didn't get the mount on the wall just perfect, or there's some quirk to it, you can easily adjust those to get them just perfectly level, which it should be. So I've used a lot of those mounts, and I recommend them wholeheartedly, I must say. If not, a full articulating mount as well. So you can swing it around and point it in the proper direction, so to speak. But for anything, though, I just think that unless you have a reason not to, you should wall mount the screen.
Well, you might have a nice piece of furniture, and you may prefer the look of the stand on the furniture than mounted to the wall. If you don't want,
I actually in my main TV in my living room is on like a pedestal stand that has a wall mount apparatus built into it, so it's that kind of thing. But it's still mounted. It's not using the base stand that came with the TV itself. But it's also just for safety too. I know a lot of parents out there with young kids, and they're all starting to grab the set or reach up to it and
it's not grabbing's not the problem. It's when your 40-pound kid is doing chin-ups on the television that it's a problem.
Oh man, that's wrong.
Well, everybody should have at least one story about a friend of theirs with a drunken friend that fell on their HDTV. Drunken people should not be allowed in the room with a nice HDTV. That's all I'm going to say.
Sad.
Ladies and gentlemen, twitter.com/Robert Heron or @Robert Heron if you got questions about home theater, fidelity, and all that kind of stuff. I'm @Patrick Norton on the Twitters. Keep an eye on that because we have a new podcast starting in the next couple weeks. In fact, I have a couple new podcasts starting in the next couple weeks. I'll get into that. I'm apparently on some sort of Twitter hiatus. I just realized I haven't posted on Twitter since November 25th. Which is probably the longest I've gone without posting on Twitter since the last time I disappeared to Baja, which was about 1,000 years ago. Twitch at twit.tv is the email address if you want to send us questions. I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan and I will hammer on the questions next week. There's a lot of news going on this week because we skipped Thanksgiving episode. Because, Burke apparently didn't want to have Thanksgiving dinner while staring at a couple of Skype feeds. He just gave me communicating. Maverick was communicating from behind the board. We want to thank everybody for listening. Do us a favor, go to twit.tv/Twitch and subscribe if you haven't already, or just search for Twitch on iTunes or wherever your favorite podcaster is. I'm Patrick Norton.
I am Roberto Heron.
And we will, one of us will see you next week on Twitch. Maybe both of us if something strange happens. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching.
Thanks for having me.